Chapter 25. Complete silence filled the room, as if the world had been frozen, and every member of the council stared at Mino. Thomas sat stunned, waiting for the runners to say he'd been kidding. Galley finally broke the spell, standing up. That's ridiculous. He faced Newt and pointed back at Mino, who had taken his seat again. He should be kicked off the council for saying something so stupid. Any pity Thomas had felt for Galley, however remote, completely vanished at that statement. Some keepers seemed to actually agree with Mino's recommendation, like Frypan, who clapped to drown out Galley, clamoring to take a vote. Others didn't. Winston shook his head, adamantly saying something that Thomas couldn't quite make out. When everyone started talking at once, Thomas put his head in his hands to wait it out, terrified and awed at the same time. Why had Mino said that? He has to be a this has to be a joke, he thought. Newt said it takes forever just to become a runner, much less the keeper. He looked up, wishing he were 1,000 miles away. Finally, Newt put his note, stepped out from the semicircle, screaming to shut up. Thomas watched on as no one seemed to hear or notice Newt at all. Gradually, though, order was restored and everyone sat down. Shuck it, Newt said. I've never seen so many shanks acting like teat-sucking babies. We may not look it, but around these we're adults. Act like it, or we'll disband this bloody council and start from scratch. He walked from end to end of the curved row of sitting keepers, looking each of them in the eye as he spoke. Are we clear? Right. Quiet had swept across the group. Thomas expected more outburst, but was surprised when everyone nodded their consent, even Galley. Good that. Newt walked back to his chair and sat down, putting the pad in his lap. He scratched out a few lines on the paper, then looked at Mino. That's some pretty serious clunk, brother, but you need to talk it up to move forward. Thomas couldn't help feeling eager to the response. Mino looked exhausted, but he's defending his proposal. Sure easy for you shanks to sit here and talk about something you're stupid on. I'm the only runner in this group, and the only other one here who's even been out in the maze is Newt. Galley interjected. Not if you count the time I don't, Mino shouted, and believe me, you, or nobody else, has the slightest clue what it's like to be out there. The only reason you were stung is because you broke the same rule you're blaming Thomas for. That's called hypocrisy, you shuck-faced piece of... Enough, Newt said. Defend your proposal and be done with it. The tension was palpable. Thomas felt like the air in the room had become glass that could shatter at any second. Both Galley and Mino looked as if the taut red skin of their faces was about to burst. But they finally broke their stare. Anyway, listen to me, Mino continued as he took his seat. I've never seen anything like it. He didn't panic. He didn't whine and cry. Never seemed scared. Dude, he'd been here for just a few days. Think about what we were all like in the beginning. Huddling in corners, disoriented, crying every hour, not trusting anybody, refusing to do anything. We were all like that for a week or months, till we had no choice but to shuck it up and live. Mino stood up, pointed at Thomas. Just a few days after this guy shows up, he steps out in the maze to save two shanks he hardly knows. All this clunk about him breaking a rule is just beyond stupid. He didn't get the rules yet, but plenty of people had told him what it was like in the maze, especially at night, and he still stepped out there just as the door was closing, only caring that two people needed help. He took a deep breath, seeming to gain strength the more he spoke. But that was just the beginning. After that, he saw me give up on Albie, leave him for dead, and I was the veteran, the one with all the experience and knowledge. So when Thomas saw me give up, he shouldn't have questioned it, but he did. Think about the willpower and the strength it took him to push Albie up the wall, inch by inch. It's psycho. It's freaking crazy. But that was it. Then came the Grievers. I told Thomas we had to split up, and I started to practice evasive maneuvers, running in the patterns. Thomas, when he should have been wetting his pants, took control, defied all laws of physics and gravity to get Albie up onto the wall. diverted the grievers away from him, beat one off, found. We get the point, Galley snapped. Tommy here is a lucky shank. Mino rounded on him. No, you worthless shuck. You don't get it. I've been here 2 years, and I've never seen anything like it. For you to say anything. Mino paused, rubbing his eyes, groaning in frustration. Thomas realized his own mouth had dropped wide open. His emotions were scattered. Appreciation for Mino standing up to everybody on his behalf. Disbelief that Galley's continuous belligerence. Fear of what the final decision would be. Galley, Mino said in a calmer voice, you're nothing but a sissy who has never, not once, asked to be a runner or tried out for it. You don't have the right to talk about things you don't understand. So shut your mouth. Galley stood up again, fuming. So one more thing like that, and I'll break your neck, right here in front of everybody. Spit flew from his mouth as he spoke. Mino laughed, then raised the palm of his hand and shoved Galley in the face. Thomas half stood as he watched the glader crash down into his chair, tipping it over backward, cracking it into two pieces. Galley sprawled across the floor, then scrambled to stand up, struggling to get his hands and feet under him. Mino stepped closer and stomped the bottom of his foot down on Galley's back, driving his body flat to the ground. Thomas flopped back into his seat, stunned. I swear, Galley, Mino said with a sneer, don't ever threaten me again. Don't ever speak to me again. Ever. If you do, I will break your shuck neck right after I'm done with your arms and legs. Newt and Winston were on their feet and grabbing Mino before Thomas even knew what was going on. They pulled him away from Galley, who jumped up, his face a rutted mask of rage. But he made no move toward Mino. He just stood there, with his chest out, heaving ragged breaths. Finally, Galley backed away, half stumbling toward the exit behind him. His eyes darted around the room, lit with a burning hatred. Thomas had the sickening thought that Galley looked like someone about to commit murder. He backed toward the door, reached behind him to grab the handle. Things are different now, he said, spitting on the floor. You shouldn't have done that, Mino. You should not have done that. His maniacal gaze shifted to Newt. I know you hate me, that you've always hated me. You should be banished for your embarrassing inability to lead this group. You're shameful, and any one of you who stays here is no better. Things are going to change. This I promise. Thomas's heart sank, as if things hadn't been awkward enough already. Galley yanked the door open and stepped out into the hall, but before anyone could react, he popped his head back in the room. And you, he said, glaring at Thomas. The green bean who thinks he's freaking God. Don't forget, I've seen you before. I've been through the changing. What these guys decide doesn't mean jack. He paused, looking at each person in the room. When his malicious stare fell back on Thomas, he had one last thing to say. Whatever you came here for, I swear on my life, I'm going to stop it. Kill you if I have to. Then he turned and left the room, slamming the door behind him.